like to call to order the regular council meeting for the City of Springdale for November 5th, 2025. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Browder, if you take roll.
Mr. Gleaves.
Present.
Mr. Jacobs.
Present.
Ms. McFarland.
Present.
Mrs. Sullivan-Weinskott.
Present.
Mr. Vanover.
Present.
Mrs. Webster.
Present.
Mr. Anderson.
Present. All right, Council, next on the agenda, you have in your packets the minutes from the October 15th, 2025 meeting. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions, discussions, additions, or changes? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as published signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The minutes are approved by acclamation. All right. Next up, we're moving on to presentation. This evening, we have two presentations. One of them is from the Metropolitan Sewer District, and the other is going to be from Tech Engineering, TEC Engineering, on Safer Streets for All. We'll start with the Metropolitan Sewer District, if you want to come forward. Now, Council, this is an informational presentation to us. There's an action related to this tonight, whereas the Safer Streets for All presentation, we do have legislation later that we'll be considering.
Thank you for the time that you've given to present this. You probably are not aware, you may be aware that when MSD's sewer system, I'm from the Metropolitan Sewer District. I'm the head of the Capital Planning Division down at MSD. When our sewers get too much rainwater coming in, I'll explain that in a minute, the basements back up in different areas of the city, and that's what this presentation is about. So rainwater can get into the sewer system in Springdale there is supposed to be just toilets and showers and sinks and things like that. But sometimes the downspouts on the houses are connected to our sewers, and sometimes the area drains and stairwells and stuff. And when the heavy rainfall comes, it can get into our sewers and cause the water level to rise and get in the basement. And we've been fighting against that the entire history of the Metropolitan Sewer District. So recently we passed an ordinance or a rule, but a directive to the development that we can't allow development upstream of these areas that the basements are flooding in the heavy rainfall. So I know that's not been told to you before, and it's just been, we're waiting to actually get some agreements in place with, we've been working with the city of Sharonville, but you've had a development come up recently, and so we thought we'd better bring it to your attention to let you know how this program, how development move forward. We're not against development at all, yeah, but how we can do that without putting the residents of Springdale at risk, because you can see in the picture there, that's the sewer system of your area. The flow goes from, generally from to the east, and these I'll just talk. The red dots are houses that get the sewers back up into those houses when there's a heavy rainfall, or have in the last 10 years. So the goal is then on our program is to remove the infiltration water that's getting in there so that development can proceed without risk to the residents. So the way it rolls out, I guess I can go through my slides quickly enough. Yeah, I just told you all that. The blue line is the key one. MSD cannot allow development, which would increase the flow. We can't allow people more risk to the residents that have flooding. And I guess I'll say one more point about a previous point there. The second point, we've been looking at the removal program we had in the 90s and early 2000s, where we removed a lot of stormwater connections. And what we're finding is that houses have changed hands multiple times in those 25, 30 years. And as people who buy the house for a very short duration and turn it back over, typically called flippers, they'll oftentimes reconnect the downspouts that we paid to disconnect in the 90s and 2000s, and they'll reconnect them to the sewer because it gets the water off the yard and comes back to the sewer. So we're seeing, for a number of reasons, the pipes are getting older, the laterals are getting older to the houses, and because of reconnections, that the amount of stormwater that's getting in the system is increased over the last 25 years. So and I'm not blaming anybody, it's MSD's responsibility, but the action plan we have is to not allow the problem to get worse by adding more large developments. We allow houses, if a homeowner wants to add an extra bathroom or something, that's fine. We're not going to stop normal homeowner usage of their property, but we just have to stop large-scale developments from adding large flows upstream of these areas. So there's the Springdale credits area, 2050, where it comes down to that. There's a capital project on the books to fix this. there's 2 capital projects to fix this problem. The first one would be we hope to be implemented in 2035, and the next one has not been scheduled yet. So we have a tremendous backlog of work in the Hamilton County, and so we try to prioritize that, and that's where one falls in 2035 to be constructed. The other one has not yet been prioritized. But there's 2 projects to solve this problem. Oops. So no flow increases. We want to work with participating communities to remove rainfall connections, stormwater connections to the sanitary system in order to provide credits for development. So the goal being a development comes in, the net amount of flow that's being added into sewer is actually much less than was there previously. So, sorry, what was their SRP's history? This is just one example in Deer Park. You can see that that's from Google Street View. The downspout goes into the ground. It's connected to our system. And these are houses the red are houses that were in our program. This is not your community. This is Deer Park. It just happened to be one where we did a lot of investigation about 2 years ago. And the red are houses that were in our program to remove connections. And the green are currently connections going into the ground. I can't confirm that not yet that every one of those, most of those won't go to our sewer, but you can see in a lot of these red houses, there are connections that are going back into the ground, and many of them were actually paid to be removed, and now they're going back in the ground. So this is not atypical. In most of the areas we look, we find these reconnections and other things. So, and again, not blaming anybody, the homeowner isn't aware. We didn't put it on the deed. We didn't put a lien or a restriction so they would know, and 3 homeowners later, they have no idea, and they might just see the downspout going in their yard, and there's a connection that may have been covered or filled with grout or something 25 years ago, and they'll open it up and put this drain into their yard back into the system. So the IGA, it's an intergovernmental agreement. What our difficulty is, we can identify the sources. And in the public side ones, no problem. We can go and remove those, and it's no difficulty. When we deal with the private side residents, it's very difficult for us. One, if the connection is actually illegal, we can't do anything because it's an illegal connection. We can't pay ratepayer money to fix that, and that causes, oftentimes when we try to go and remove these, a protracted difficulty. So what we're working out with Sharonville first, they're first in the queue, and they've agreed to we've all agreed to the terms of it. I'm just waiting to get the document through the bureaucratic steps. Not that there's any bureaucracy here, I'm sure, but I'm from MSD. I live in the world of bureaucracy. So it was almost through. Hopefully in the next couple of days, we'll have that. You have a draft of that agreement. It's been provided to the administrative team, and it's a very straightforward agreement. You don't ever have to do anything based on that agreement. It simply says, if you participate with us and actually help the resident remove the connection in some way, Sharonville's planning to put together a grants program that the resident could apply for. I have a connection that MSD's identified, and I don't know what to do about it. Then Sharonville, this is just based on my discussions with them. They would give them a list of approved people that they say these people are approved to do the work, and you just give us the receipt, and maybe they pay 10% or 90%, or maybe it's based on need. I don't know that's something on them. But what we would do is send a letter saying, this is an illegal connection. You're required to remove it. And in that package would be a Sharonville letter that says, hey, by the way, contact us if you want assistance in removing this connection. When that connection's removed, we simply are notified by Sharonville. They get a receipt or they pay it or whatever they do. And then we would credit that on our ledger to any developments that Sharonville is going forward with on their side. The other part to that is we can do certain rehabilitation in the public side to remove the I&I from the manhole covers that the water might be going in, or cracked pipes. And we have a system with the EPA that's been approved in our consent decree for how we track those numbers. And so we will, with those communities that are partnering with us on this, we will do half the credits that are required for the development. We will do them on the public side. So if you're required to get 500 credits or 20 credits, we would do our half. We would do at least half, and then you would do the other ones from identified sources that need to be removed. So there's no hurry on our part to get this put together, but we'd like to move forward with the communities. And even if you move forward with an intergovernment agreement, there's zero obligation on Springdale to ever do anything. It just puts in place a mechanism whereby we can partner with you so those credits that are removed can go to your account, and essentially to allow Springdale to have the ability to move forward with the small, medium developments and things like that. MSD will identify the connections. Springdale could work in some way to work with the residents. We provide equivalent. Springdale determines how to assist them, and then we confirm all those removals. So you don't need the numbers here, but it's just, if you remove a downspout, you can add 800 gallons per day to the sewer. Super exciting, who cares? It's equivalent to about 2 houses. So each downspout would be equivalent of 2 houses. Each driveway drains 3. We get credits on the public side for the lining and the manhole rehab. It depends. I'm an engineer. I'm very proud of that, but I can't do basic math. I'm sure all of you council members can do better math than I can. I was hurrying on this slide, and I didn't want to submit a revised set right before the meeting. But yes, it's not 100,000 minus 50,000 is not 40,000. But anyway, if you were to do 50,000 as it properly shows in the bottom, if that's how many gallons you were required to get, you'd have to remove 63 downspouts. That's a lot, but that some combination of that. And if you're moving forward on a program, we certainly want to work with you to make that happen. We don't want to stop things. If you're in good faith, everybody's proceeding, we'll do whatever we can. So we identify it. Springdale assists the residents to remove it, and then we confirm it. Lastly is our legal justification. We have a very nasty letter that we have to send if we have an illegal connection that people have to remove. Residents, when they get this letter, it's not pleasant. It's not even pleasant for them when I tell them I'm coming on their property to inspect for illegal connections. That causes a lot of angst. That's where we'd be really happy to have a Springdale letter saying, hey, we're partnering with MSD on this, because you guys are nice and friendly to your residents, and we are very evil and bad. The perception is that we're coming in to stomp on people. We're not trying to. We're just trying to help protect. But anyway, the letter, if you notice this little nasty line in the middle, it says there's a $100 a day penalty starting after 30 days. And that's the letter we have to send if they have an illegal connection that we know of. And so we'd like to send a letter with a nice Springdale letter that says, hey, we want to help you, work with you. And it might be just as simple as putting the downspout and turning it out on the ground. That's a lot of what they could be. Other communities are saying we don't want them to go. We've talked to Blue Ash in Springdale, Sharonville. We'd rather not have it go on the ground. We'll connect to the storm sewer. We'll connect it to the curb. And I'm not sure what your ordinances are. And we don't have any problem with any of those. As long as it's not going in our sewer, we'll give you the credit, and you build the subdivisions. That's my whole presentation. I'll take as many questions as you want, and I'd be glad to come back to follow up on this, or I'd be glad to talk to anybody in person or in meetings, whatever. So.
Yeah, and before we get into too many questions, just to re-level set for council and people watching why we're doing this today, why we're talking about this today is, as we've been doing a lot of these developments around the area, we're finding, as part of the developers, they check in with MSD to make sure before they do like a high-rise or redevelopment, they have to make sure there's sewer capacity. And what we're finding more and more is in this section that we're in, there's some areas that aren't able to take much more. So that's why you're starting to see some flooding in some roads, things like that. So this was something that Sharonville looked into with the agreement to do some credit system to get some remediation in the residential side. And then that enables our developers to then continue and keep growing inside of Springdale. So the reason for the presentation today is to give you an idea on what that type of program could look like. And that would be something that council would need to decide to move forward with in the future to create an agreement or start the program to do that. We might have some need to do that depending on what types of developments we want to encourage and where those developments will occur. There isn't a specific issue that we're dealing with today. Like I said at the beginning, there's not an ordinance, so we're not asking to do this now. It's to start being educated on it, and if it's something we need to do or want to do, we'll continue down that process. But that's something that between administration and council, there'll be a number of actions we'd have to take. So that's the program overview. Let me open it up for questions. Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. And piggyback on that, we had to deal with this with regard to the Slate Apartments. They had to go through a long period of time that was delayed while they're dealing with some things with MSD in terms of capacity, as well as the
Laundromat.
The laundromat over here. They also ran into it, and they had a delayed opening. So, question being, I'd spoken with an individual who's, I don't know if she's at the top of the food chain at MSD. If she's not, she's close to it, and had indicated that there are you guys have a lot of programs and projects and things are pushed back. You're saying the project that would impact us is out to how far?
There's 2 projects, and the first of them would be on the north side, connecting essentially the Victoria area across. I can show you the location of it. I should have marked it on my map. Oops, sorry. probably over there. No. All right, fit my remember. There. The first of them connects the sewer on the north side of 275 across to our sewer over here. And that would allow for development north of 275 in this area. That one's slated to be constructed in 2035, if nothing else if nothing bumps it further back. The second project is to improve this sewer, replace this sewer from here up to here. That one has not yet been scheduled or prioritized, so that's probably in the 40s before that one would be built. So once it's prioritized, I'd have a better idea.
In the first one, will that also help benefit Glendale, some of our neighbors to the south too, or is that going to be more of an impact to help out Sharonville as well?
The first one just impacts this area to the north here. So
Okay.
we connect across from approximately Papados over to the far side of the railroad track there and to our sewer. In the late 90s, early 2000s, we constructed this large Springdale sewer, and it goes about to here. So this has capacity. And so, for instance, this is Tri-County Mall. I've heard that there's some plans for that. That can connect right now. There's capacity that takes that flow, and so we'll give availability if that's requested. But the ones that come into that sewer to the western part of Springdale, that's where the limitations are. So.
Okay. And so my big question is this, and I know it's going to vary depending on house to house. What are you estimating the average cost is going to be with regard to remediation when these things pop up and there's a connection into your sewer system?
So if it's a downspout, it could simply be cut the downspout off, put a turnout on it, and fill the connection with grout. So it's probably on the order of $100. The homeowner could do it themselves, or the city could. I don't know how that would work, but it's generally on the order. If I was doing my house, it would cost me $50, but on the $100, $200 limit. If it has to go to the curb, that's probably on the order of $1,200 maybe to trench it to the curb and put a curb cut there. If you have to get a driveway drain and pump it out, we were paying about $3,000 many years ago. So I would expect that a plumber would probably be on more than $3,000 to $4,000, $5,000, depending on the length of distance. If it has to connect to the storm sewer under the road, that's extremely expensive because now you've got to dig up the road and restore it. So if Springdale chooses to connect these to the storm sewer, it's going to be $10,000 probably per property. But if it's just a matter of helping them get it out in the grass, then it's probably on the order of $100 a piece.
And you're indicating that MSD doesn't have any enforcement power with regard to these situations, correct?
We have enforcement power, and because the connection's illegal, the enforcement power is basically, you must remove it, and we'll fine you $100 a day if you don't. And that goes on their lien against their property if they don't contest it. And if they do contest it, we end up in lengthy legal. It's just time-consuming and difficult for us to enforce these each time. So. We'd much rather work in some way that if the resident's not fearful, I think they'll be glad to work to get these things removed because we do want to stop the flooding. We want to stop people's basements from getting backed up. But it's a surprise of MSD coming and saying, we're going to come on your property, which Ohio Revised Code gives us the right to do because they're connected to our sewer, and then we're going to fine you if you don't fix it. And that's why we're very cognizant of the fact that if Springdale's saying, at least talking to people with us, that concern is going to be much alleviated when they get, when we when we come on their property and look for the connections and test them and find them. And I can't tell you that each one's going to be easy or hard. That I can't tell you. But some of them are so simple. Like that one I showed you in Deer Park there. It was turned out, and they connected it back up. So that Deer Park cut it off and put a downspout and filled it with grout. Then we're done. We're done. Okay. Or the resident does it.
And maybe I misheard you because I thought I saw the letter, I saw everything that's in there, but I thought you were saying before that you basically need the city to go through to enforce that process.
No, the enforcement process is entirely us.
Okay.
The city does nothing on enforcement. The start of the process is we will send out notifications to the residents. We're coming on your property. Here's the Ohio Revised Code. Here's the Hamilton County ordinance that allows us to do that because you're connected. We'll go on their property and test their downspouts to see if they're connected. That's all the first step. That is frightening to some people, but that's just happens. We do that. And then the second one is we found an illegal connection. The dye we put in your downspout came into our sewer. It's illegally connected. It's a clear water connection. And we sent an enforcement letter, which is that one I showed you there, and that's entirely us as well. We are very hesitant and have been historically very hesitant to do that just because of the time consuming and the concern on the residents' part. Their first thing when I see a letter that looks like that is, who do I know who knows the law? Who's a lawyer or someone I can talk to? What does this mean to me? And we'd much rather, we'd like to, we'll talk to them and such, but we'd rather that they had a friendly face in the room.
And so maybe that's the point. MSD has not been going through to enforce that necessarily, but with things like this setting up that Sharonville's doing and we're having these discussions on, it sort of opens the door with regard to going through and doing the enforcement that you other guys wouldn't be doing.
That's correct. The decision has been made that we'll just have to stop development because we can't allow more flow in these sewers. But we don't want to stop development. It's an essential part of the community in Hamilton County and Springdale. We understand that. And so we're dedicated to trying to serve people. But we want to work out in a way that's going to make this happen within the realm of the legalities we deal with and financial constraints we deal with. So this is other communities have been fairly positive about it so far, and we will eventually notify all 32 municipalities of exactly what the structure is. As I said, the Sharonville one is kind of like our bellwether to say, hey, we set this up. Would you like to do the same thing? Would you like to do the same thing? So you just happen to have a development that was talking to us in your area, and so it's like, well, we better let Springdale know that on that side of the county, that kind of the city, we can't allow development in that area.
Last question.
Yeah, please.
Relinquished to the president. I hear what you're saying, and I guess here's the part of it. In terms of your intentions, I don't want to publicly have you declaw yourself for MSD. I shouldn't say you, MSD. But it sounds like your intention would be, if council were to agree to go through this process, that despite what all those different ramifications are within the letter that you guys can seek, that you're not going to go and seek to fine our residents $100 a day for not remediating.
I can certainly say we'll do everything we can to avoid fining anybody for any reason $100 a day. And if we find an economic hardship, one of the things our legal department has proposed is that we at Hamilton County actually put in the budget for the city a actual program they could apply to. People could apply to say, I'm economically hardshipped by this condition, we'd like to apply, and we'd provide them some portion of the money. That's in our, it's not public, it's just that we've been talking with legal, and they say that's what we've done, the county has done things like that, and we'd like to put something like that in place. I would like to do everything I can, because just even one case that becomes difficult ties up so much time and effort on our part when we could be spending our resources other places. So we'll work with the residents. We'll try to do what we can. If they completely ignore us and they won't talk to us, then that is the outcome we have to go to. Okay. If they want more time, it's absolutely no problem. We always give them more time if they say, I need to figure this out. I need to know what to do. That's no problem. I can guarantee you we always give them additional time and time and time. As long as they keep in communication, and they're not just stringing us on, obviously, we'll give them whatever time is needed to resolve this. We're not trying to make anybody's life difficult. It's really not our goal.
Well, obviously, we have an interest in terms of making sure we have capacity for development. We've already seen things and talked about issues with regard to that now. Obviously, we would love it if MSD wasn't 10 years out for taking care of some of these things so that we weren't in this position. And I know I've seen files from my predecessor going back 30 years dealing with MSD things. So I know it's not.
One of these projects has been on the books almost that long.
Yeah, I know it's not a new thing. The balance part, though, is to put residents in a situation where people have to go potentially come out of pocket or are scared and getting fined and stuff like that. So that part's not good, but if we can strike a balance in there.
Yeah, we're not going after communities at this time that, we're not going after any communities right now. So
I understand, but what you're saying is we open Pandora's box, that's what we're waiting.
We would like to have a system in place before we start talking to your community that you're comfortable that we can move forward in this. So we're not, if Springdale says we're not going forward with this, we'll try to partner with those communities that have interest in doing this for whatever their reasons are. And we don't have the resources to go after every community in the city at this time by any means.
And that's why you're here. Administratively, this is it's a vehicle to help us with development.
Correct.
But I'm just saying there's the balance part of, are we going someplace we don't want to end up? So that's all I'm saying.
There's a very fair question, and our intention is absolutely not to make life difficult for residents or the community. It's to try to, I have been told 50 times, maybe 100 times, the entire purpose of this is to provide a vehicle to allow additional connections without putting residents at any greater risk. So we can limit the program that far. It's like, here's 14 downspouts. That's what you need to disconnect. And you go talk to those 14 residents and work that out. Or here's 35 of them. Tell us which 14 you want to go after. I mean, go after, please take that off the record. you want to communicate with, because it looks cost effective to you, and we'll only work with those residents. At this time, our goal is only to work with those residents that you say, hey, these aren't cost effective, we can pay them money. They've contacted us back and they say they want to see this connected. One of the things that, this is just my own personal thoughts, is if we sent saying, hey, if you voluntarily go into this program, you don't have to worry. If you don't go into this program voluntarily, eventually it's going to become a point where this illegality has to be dealt with, and that's somewhere down the road. So that incentivizes them to say, hey, let me talk to Springdale and see if they can help me with this. And then they get disconnected, they voluntarily join, they disconnect, and then they're settled. And then, we don't want to send any nasty letters for a long time or ever. We just want to solve the problem, and prevent basement flooding.
Thank you for the clarity.
All right, but that is important for council to understand or to highlight. If we go down this path, fundamentally, we are inviting inspections in the community that could create some of these situations, identify some of these situations that already exist that are causing flooding. But we would be inviting those inspections. The point of the program is to make it easier to remediate them so that we can encourage the development we need to in certain areas of the city. I mean, fundamentally, that's what the program's for, and that's why we're talking about tonight. But we would be taking action to invite inspections. We have heard that they may not do aggressive enforcement today, but once an illegal spout has been identified, and they have the right to do that.
I would clarify too that it is our intention over the long term to implement a removal program, to move ahead on removal everywhere we can to prevent this. So we just can't focus everywhere. So we're trying to work with those communities in as soft and gentle a way as possible, and to invite, get residents' problems fixed as effectively as we can.
That's the point where being overworked actually works in our benefit if you're backlogged. We have a few more questions we can get to. Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for coming out. This is really sobering information. And I don't want to challenge any math approach here. I was curious about the issue of downspouts.
Yeah.
We've had a flat population for 20 years. Would you characterize the downspouts as a major cause of this, or something that we can mitigate easier? Because it seems like downspouts causing this much trouble is a surprise to me,
So we did
but I'm learning a lot.
Sorry to interrupt, I apologize. We did flow monitoring in the sewers out here 3-4 years ago, and the water in some of the areas is very cold when it comes in. So the cold water in the winter, we did it in January, looked at the temperature of the water in the sewer as well as monitoring the flow, and we saw that it was very cold when the rainwater comes in January. So we know there's some things that are directly connected. A portion of that is our manhole covers are vented. If you'd see them, they have 15 holes in them. So we're actually right now, if you were to drive down the street in Springdale, you'd see our crews out there actually blocking off the manholes that in areas where the flow can pass over the manholes. So we're already taking our actions as expeditiously as we can. But there are things that are directly connected. Are those downspouts? Are they area drains in a yard? Are they a basement stairwell going down the backyard with a drain on the floor? Are they a driveway, depressed driveway? So depressed driveways are difficult and more costly to remove. A downspout is very easy. And I can't, at this point, tell you what that distribution is. We would definitely want to target a downspout over a driveway drain just because the cost benefit is much higher there for the effort that takes and the value that we get for the removal. And we don't have to go after every one. We don't have to. We have to get we have to get compensation for the additional development. That's what we have to do. And at what time frame we go after all of them, it might be long after my career, at the city.
Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, first off, not all downspouts going into the ground
Correct.
are going into sanitary sewers.
You're correct.
If they've got a French drain, and primarily newer construction, is pulled out. The manhole covers, we've got one over in our neighborhood. As a matter of fact, the Public Works was over there today, that it seems like it's either being flipped or something's not right, and it's flipping up. There's a couple times gone through there that it's completely off. But that green, dark green line on the right-hand side there, that's 615A, correct?
I'm not sure of the sewer number. I believe it's a 48-inch or 60-inch pipe that goes all the way down to.
In the 90s, they came through and did that
That's
because they
correct.
were relieving some of the overflows into the creek.
Correct.
And you said that the 2037 project is going to tie into that?
So the 2035 project.
Or 35.
Will tie across from essentially at Papados, right there. Oops, sorry, right there. It'll tie across and connect into the sewer over here. So we'll take this piece of the sewer plus any development that comes in off this overloaded pipe and move it over to the pipe here where there's adequate capacity for it to connect to.
And what effect is that going to have, that bridge, junction, what do you want to call it, going to have on that existing 615A? Because downstream, then you've just increased the flow in there. Where's it at on capacity?
So this pipe is large enough all the way down to the junction with the line coming from Sharonville, which is just upstream of what used to be our largest SSO 700. There's a restriction in the pipe there when this was constructed, and it overflows to this day. Our final remedial plan solves that problem. The projects that I've mentioned about yours are way ahead of our final remedial plan, but we're willing to allow development to take place if that's the only impact. We have to stop it where there are basements flooding, and that problem won't be solved until the MSD resolves its consent decree in the future. So it takes it about 2 miles down to close to SSO 700, where historically the overflows were large. We just put another 1 million gallon tank in there about 2-3 years ago to reduce that overflow further, and it's much less now than it was, but that's a process that'll take another 30 to 40 or more years.
And just another quick, has there been any thought in separating sanitary water from gray water?
No, not in this area. If there was storm pipes connected, we would immediately go after those first if there was a storm sewer, but the actual house construction, we don't do anything with that. So if a homeowner, I don't know what you can do for recycling or anything like that, but we don't require houses, or neither do the plumbing codes here, require a homeowner to separate the dark water from the gray water.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. President. It sounds like you were saying that downspouts are a major contributor, something we can mitigate. I will mention that I'm right near one of those red dots, and a lot of my fellow residents are there on Rose and Kemper. My other question is, looking forward, you had mentioned that we can't put restrictions on deeds to prevent this reconnection from happening. Could we do that going forward?
We can. So there's things we can do that were not done in the 90s. So we have a receipts that are in paper, and they're in boxes that are in an attic that I can't get to quite yet. But as soon as I get those receipts, I'll know exactly where we may actually paid a bill to remove them, and that'll be in our database that we'll structure. So we can start with those properties. It's like, okay, we have a bill here. We paid this property, $400 or $5,000 or whatever it was to remove the downspout. It has to be disconnected again. So that would be our first line of defense. We just happened to build a new building, and the archivist won't let me get to the papers until they finish transferring them. I know it's a bureaucracy, I can't change the way those are, but as soon as I get that, I'll tell you where they are.
So you don't like the ability to attach this as a restriction? It's like you don't like the legal ability, it's a pragmatic situation in terms of being able to actually do it. You're allowed to do it, but you're having
Yes.
trouble actually doing it.
We will do it. So
Okay.
legal has said that we should be putting this on the deed as a restriction, and we should be putting a little magnet on their refrigerator to let them know not to reconnect it. And we are also implementing on my side a database of all these that we will, and an inspection process, so every 5 to 10 years in perpetuity, till things change, but in perpetuity, they will be re-inspected to confirm that they don't reconnect. But they will go on the deed as a restriction, is our plan. That's, again, the IGA is our first legal hurdle, and then those other steps are our next ones, but our intention is to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And like I said, that testing process on the homeowner's property, it's just a matter of connecting to that spout, putting dye in, and seeing where it comes out. It's nothing more. You're not digging up the ground.
We're not digging anything.
You're not going into
no.
the sewers.
So we have a new process that was pioneered by a group in California for actually testing the downspouts with sound from our sewer. So we actually broadcast sound in there. We've been prototyping that, and if that works, we won't even put dye in their connection. We'll just listen with a microphone, contact microphone to their downspout and see if the sound makes it through. We haven't finished that testing, but we have actually 5 new technologies at MSD. That one's not our original one. We're testing it. We have other technologies that are brand new that MSD has pioneered that allow us to find more effectively the sources without actually bothering the residents as much. But the ultimate test, if everything else fails, if we put dye in there and it comes out in our sewer, then we know it's positively connected.
And then lastly, in terms of timeline and process, I know Sharonville's going through this now, and it's kind of the test case for getting some of the new agreements put together. Do you have an idea on what the lead time we should expect is if we decide we want to move forward? Is this something that we plan for 3 months from now, 12 months from now, or is it like we sign some documents and you guys start coming out next week?
Okay, so we're already doing manhole covers in your neighborhoods, to help mitigate the process. If you see our crews out there. Secondly, I have funding from that came through at the end of the year, and I've already funded a contractor who's not willing, he's getting paid. Funded a contractor to come and start inspections here. So if we have positive intention to move ahead, we can start the inspections immediately. The money's already appropriated for on our end. On your end, you would have to decide what your time frame is. We would like to start removing this summer because we will do our best testing in the spring when the rains are and the groundwater's wet. The dye moves through faster. We can see sources with cameras easier. So we would like to do our testing primarily in the early to mid spring and give you a list of, hey, here's 24 downspouts, and and you could start working this summer. If that's not your intention to start this year, that's not a problem. We could start our piece whenever, and we can hold off on that Springdale inspection piece, which is just categorizing where we have to test. We don't have any need to. It's just the funding came up 2 months ago, and so those communities that had already been talking with us, we've set up the contractor and the money, and they have plenty of other places to work. So it's not like we need to start here in Springdale, and I'm pushing to start in Springdale, which we can. We can start right away, and we can give you a list by April where you could start disconnecting if you, however that process would work. But there's no pressure. You could wait a year, and that would be not a problem, for us in a sense.
No, that's helpful because if we have developers coming in or if they have a tight timeline, at least we know if we need to get credits, we know what that lead time looks like. So that's helpful. All right, any other questions, at least today? I know sewers is a great way to start a meeting. All right, well, we really appreciate you coming in. It was very informational, and I think these slides are available if anybody wants them to review them. And then I'm sure we'll be talking about this again.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Next up, we're going to have a presentation from TEC Engineering on Safe Streets for All study. This is something I did mention. You noticed later in the agenda, we do have a resolution related to this presentation. So we'll go through the presentation. If you have questions for the presenters, you'll have that opportunity. We tend to want to keep any deliberation or questions, like in terms of pass or not, in the resolution when we talk about that later. But do plan to ask your questions about the study itself during the presentation section. So with that.
All right, thank you. My name is Ed Williams with TEC Engineering, and Andrea Harth is also here. We'll both be presenting. You guys are lucky. You get 3 engineers in a row about crashes and sewers, so it's an exciting night. So I want to thank you guys for the ability to come out and talk tonight. Andrea and I both worked for TEC for a very long time. Most of that's been in Springdale, and it's been exciting to do this project and look at crashes in the area. So just kind of a background. So this started with an FHWA grant to do an action plan, which really looks at, it's a data-driven approach looking at crashes in the city. And so we looked at every single crash in a 5-year period in the city. Really the plan is really to look at the data, focus in on the serious and injury crashes, and then come up with not only a methodology to come up with projects and identify things that can make the street safer for everybody, but also to develop a process that this can be repeated. You guys can look at crashes in the future, identify what has worked and what you've done to make the street safer, and then repeat that process so that you can continue on. So that's kind of what this says. The other slide about the Vision Zero, basically focuses on fatal and serious injuries. So a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight, there's thousands of crashes in the city. We really are focusing in on those fatal and serious ones because those are the ones that cause the most damage to the people on the roads. And then look at proven safety countermeasures. And so, at the end of this, that's what we focused in on is what were the crashes, how can we prevent them, and what proven countermeasures can we implement to start to make the streets safer and come up with plans and funding mechanisms, which we'll talk about tonight. So I'll let Andrea talk about some of the process. And again, Vision Zero, talked about that. So.
Okay. So I'm going to wrap up a year worth of reporting and planning into this few slides. So here we go. So we started this again at the end of 2024, beginning of 2025. We've been working on this. So we kind of wanted to go through the action plan contents. It's actually more of our whole process and procedure of how we got to the final action plan. We call it a report a lot, but I really like the word action plan. It is more than a report. It is a plan. And it's a living document also. So that's why this is kind of a little circular, a visual for it. It should be the process should be repeated. It should be updated. It's a living document to help create these projects to make the street safer. So I'm going to go through these quickly with some more detail in a few of them. Commitment statement, introduction. We want to make streets safer, study area, the whole city. We do look at past planning and the ongoing projects that, just so we're not duplicating some of those processes. And I want to talk a little bit about the equity and engagement. So we had a few different kinds of engagement. So we had one thing which was the task force. So the task force includes city officials, city engineer, representatives from police and fire, just to make sure that we are getting a broad spectrum of what the city feels are some of the areas to improve safety. And we had several meetings with the task force. We also had an online survey that hopefully you saw. We got 20 responses, hoped for a few more, but every response is a good response to really give we look at a lot of data, but the data is not the everyday person who drives through here. Data is not the close calls, this feels unsafe. And that's a real problem when things feel unsafe, because usually if they feel unsafe, they are unsafe for somebody. So we did do the survey. So that's kind of the engagement part. The equity part is just making sure we're looking at the whole city and not singling out any neighborhood individually. We're looking at the whole city and all the neighborhoods. We do the crash analysis. It's one little part here. It is a huge part of what we did, a lot of GIS, a lot of data. And then we make our priority listing, proposed improvement, and implementation. And we'll get through those as we continue on. Very, very broad crash overview here. We did a lot of maps. This is just one little overview. 2,300 crashes, and I think a big part is 24% of those were injuries or fatalities. So that's, again, what we're looking at here. That does not include actual mainline 275. You can't do much as a city on mainline 275, so we did not include that. It does include the ramp connections, and we do have some recommendations there. And it also does, just for notes, include like Crescentville that split half Springdale, half the county, township. We included the whole street. So you can kind of see your trends there. Just the maps, because we like to put things on maps. Okay, heat map kind of showing where the crashes are. You can see Princeton Pike, Springfield Pike. Bicycle crashes, only a few. That's good, but we're also trying to improve your bike network. So, and then pedestrian crashes, again, just a handful. Again, this is a lot of steps to say that we did a lot of analysis. So I'll just go kind of through them quickly. Is we take all the crashes and they're in a big GIS database. We assign them to different spots or segments. A spot is usually an intersection. A segment is a corridor. We look at the different features of those segments, calculate crash frequency and crash rate. And that's just one thing I want to touch on kind of quickly. Is frequency says there's a lot of crashes here. Okay, you know you have Princeton Pike and Kemper, there's a lot of crashes there. The crash rate is saying we have this many crashes per this many cars. And I think that's important because there are lower volume roads. They might only have 20 crashes, but there's only 1,000 cars a day. I made that number up. I don't know. But the idea of those need to be represented as well. It can't just be the big streets. It can't just be the ramps. It can't just be the main arterials. We've got to look at neighborhoods and the small, lower volume roads. So after we do that, we made a priority list, which we will go through when Ed gets back up here, and then presented our project sites to the task force. So as we transition back to Ed, these are the high priority locations. Again, you can see spots, segments, and then the spots and segments with active improvements, just to kind of separate those out.
So, we went through, all the data analysis, all the different things, and these are kind of the ones that rose to the top. And a couple things to point out on these that kind of surprised me is like the segments Chesterdale Road jumped up. And as Andrea talked about, if we just went through and looked at high crash locations, it's going to be, Princeton Pike and Kemper, and Springfield Pike and Kemper, and Crescentville, but Chesterdale Road jumped up. There were several injury crashes on that road. A lot of stuff on West Kemper. So Rose and Ken and those intersections. So those were when you get into the data, and we've done a couple of these, it's always like, well, where did this intersection come from? I don't normally think about this intersection. Haven't driven through the city a lot, and obviously we pull out the spots and segments with active improvements because yes, Northland has some crashes. There's an active project there to fix some things, and the important thing is in a couple of years from now, when that project's done, looking back at the data and going, what changed? How did this improve that situation? And are there lessons to be learned from what we did on that road that could be done somewhere else? Same thing, the Kemper and Northland shared use path. There's obviously an improvement at Kemper and Northland. There's the shared use path project that you guys are doing over near Century. So all of those projects looking in the future and going, what did that result in, and did that really reduce crashes and severity of crashes? And so this was kind of when we went through that process and kind of started to put together project lists and project areas, this is kind of what came out of that. There's everything from, small minor projects in here and some projects, some intersections and segments have multiple ideas that could be done on those. Some of them are small, restriping an intersection, restriping a corridor. Some of them are bigger roundabouts that could possibly be looked at. The entire West Kemper area, one of the comments that we got on that was speed, and there's speed comments all over the place, but one of the comments on that was speed. So maybe looking at improvements along that corridor to try to slow down speeds and make the intersections a little bit safer. So that kind of is the nutshell of some of the projects that were proposed out of the analysis that came out because of all the data analysis, all that stuff. The final thing that we'll talk about is funding for those projects. So, each of those projects has a way to fund it. There is funding, federal funding. There is, we worked with Hamilton. We were able to get $12 million for implementation funding for Hamilton through SS4A. There's local funding, STBG, TA, CMAC, those are all OKI funds that are available through the OKI. Those are up to I think around 6 million, and an 80-20 split. The HSIP, which is through ODOT, the Highway Safety Improvement Program, that's also really good funding. Millions of dollars available there. That's a 90-10 split, so it's 90 cents on the dollar. It's a lot better. And of course, some of the local funding that's up there, the OPWC, the MTIF, those can all be used to reduce the match for each of those federal funding programs. So, and as I said, the SS4A implementation grant, that's an 80-20 grant for the entire process. So it's designed through construction, which some of those other grants are 80-20 only on construction. So there's different methods to pay for different things, but that's kind of an encapsulation of the process that we've gone through now. The idea is, as Andrea mentioned on this project, is, you know, going through the process of identifying crash locations, coming up with ideas and projects, and then repeating this process in a couple of years after projects like Northland Boulevard and Northland and Kemper are done, and seeing how that improved. And you know, we've done this in other communities and seen, hey, these projects really worked. You know, we did some minor little things here, some restriping, some high visibility crosswalks, and hey, the pedestrian crashes really went down. And that's what you're trying to get to through this process, and really make the streets safer. So, as Andrea said, that was a quick encapsulation of a year process.
So council, if there's questions for the presentation, this is your opportunity to ask them. We will have the legislation that was in your packet later to talk about Resolution R18, and we'll have that discussion later in our agenda. Just a few questions for you, Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. It had 747 in Crescentville Road, and I'm there constantly. And lady sitting behind you will verify what aspects of this will take care of traffic running the red lights, because it is becoming ridiculous. A yellow light just means speed up to get there quicker.
Yeah, so there are opportunities that could be done to try to. There's some things with the signal we could do to make that work better. That intersection has grown, and it's a large intersection. You know, I know a couple years ago we had discussions on ODOT had approached the city on some things that could be done there. That didn't come to fruition from ODOT's perspective, but I do think, you know, there's opportunities to try to, I'm going to use the word decrease, but I don't mean reduce lanes, but decrease the size of the intersection. I think there's opportunities to put some technology in that could help with the red light running that's there. Overall, with that corridor, I think there's opportunities, just like I think you guys did years ago on State Route 4, to try to get people in the right lane at the right location. I think there's opportunities there, because I do think that leads to some driver frustration that then creates some of those red lights. So all of those things are potential for that intersection.
And the other, at that intersection, and actually several of them, is the right-hand turn on red, because drivers have forgotten the last 3 words or last 2 words after stop.
Yes.
And they take it as a continuous right-hand turn.
Yeah.
And specifically at Crescentville and 747, I see it tremendously, especially on the northbound traffic coming into the intersection, and you get the turn signals, they just go.
Just go. Yes, I agree. Drivers are getting more
Distracted.
yes, so less caring.
Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for coming down. We got a very low number of responses within 2 months. Did you consider, and why is it just 2 months that you use with such low data?
So we you know, obviously put that out there. We went through social media. We we tried to push it out. I've had it put on OKI's, I think LinkedIn or Facebook. I think we put it out there trying to get more responses. We just didn't get the responses.
We also talked about it here in council after OKI. We announced and we shared the URL. I mean, we can always try to get more responses, but I mean, we advertised it here too from the dais.
Yeah, and what we tried to do, and I think Andrea talked about it a little bit, we created an online map so that people could just drop a point and say, I feel this is unsafe for a reason, so that we could, it was easier to identify those locations and trying to describe what's the intersection of these two roads. And, you know, we can definitely open it back up and see if we can get more responses, but we tried a number of methods to push it out there.
Well, I can tell you the streets and intersection identified aren't a surprise for anyone that's lived here for any amount of time. So, Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for coming out. Kemper is in the presentation again. Kemper and Rose, I've seen horrific accidents there. You had a proposed list, maybe 10, I believe it was around 10. Is that ranked or was that just randomly numbered?
So that was that not necessarily ranked. Those were randomly numbered. Those were the locations that did pop up to the list, as Andrea talked about. There, we ranked spots and segments, and we came up with 2 different ways to rank both of them to see that, okay, you know, 747 and Kemper is always going to be at the top. Kemper and Prince and Pike are always going to be bad corridors with a lot of crashes, but trying to see were there other places it could jump up. So, thank you.
Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to piggyback on a couple of things. That this task force in this presentation and is ultimately this action plan is kind of the catalyst that helps us apply for future funding mechanisms to help make our streets a little safer to traverse through, both pedestrian, vehicular, and then whatever methods may come in the future. So this is kind of that first building block that we need to be eligible. And as you know, many people have said and thought, we all know what those problem areas are within the city, especially as we began talking through the task force and whatnot. Police, fire, public works, they all identified all of our problem areas. But it's great in our heads, but we need it down on a paper, in a plan, with an action plan, and then now we can start to begin to apply for some of these other funding sources to help alleviate some of our issues. And the main objective is to significantly reduce what those serious injury auto accidents and fatalities are within our city, and we believe we can get to that point. Hopefully, there's some driver inattention and distraction that we can't necessarily take out of the equation, but physically we're going to try and do what we can and how we build out some of these road networks and these intersections to significantly reduce our transportation network here within the city.
Yeah, well, I can tell you on the distracted driving side, I did see in a presentation, I think it was with OKI, they had some interesting ways to address that, even with road design, where they had bump outs, right? Because the center lane isn't straight anymore, they made them weaving intentionally, just to keep the driver engaged. I was surprised that those were good options, but apparently they had some good results in the right place. So even distracted driving can be addressed with some of these programs, which I think is great. Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the fatalities, I'm sure, was there any breakdown between personal vehicles, private passenger vehicles versus trucks, semis, specifically because we have an overabundance, especially on 747 and Crescentville, with truck terminals all over. Was there any, what do you want to call it, minute breakdown on the effect of that, or is it just a crash is a crash?
No, we went through every single fatality and serious injury crash to look at what exactly was going on with each one, so that we could understand. And obviously, there's different reasons for different crashes, but we did go through that. You know, we tried to look at different vehicle types, times a day, you know, days of the year, that kind of stuff. So we did look at that.
Okay. And one of your other... Sure.
I can just jump in. We actually have the fatalities are kind of labeled out in the plan. I don't see any specifically about large trucks, but we did individually look at those and kind of read, because you have to read what happens. It's
Right.
more than just the numbers. So 4 included either motorcycles, pedestrians, 4 of the 8, and then 4 were passenger cars. 1 was a semi-truck struck the rear of a parked truck. Yeah, so I guess one involved the truck.
Well, and I know the tractor trailers, where they're coming in, approaching the 275 east and west intersection, where it'd be the right-hand lane turns and goes 275 west, and we have signage on the overpass, and it drives me crazy because trucks will get up to, should be turning on to 275 west, and then they're trying to slide over, and they're 10 feet further up in the air than what most of us are. So that issue is, luckily I don't think there's been too many accidents there, but it definitely bottlenecks the full traffic flow.
I wanted to go to your earlier question or discussion about the red light running at 47 Crescentville. That's a lot of trucks. When we actually looked at the number, I think the one approach was 13%. Normally we're looking at 2 to 4%. So I think when you talk about red light running, a lot of it's visibility, and if there's a truck in front of you, you just go. So I think when we do look at an improvement there, whether it's a different new signal, you've got to take that into account and make things more visible, because that's a lot of trucks.
So side signals or additional signaling, Good. Any other questions for the presentation? Mr. Gleason.
You mentioned roundabouts. Okay, when you build a roundabout, you can't say, I'm going to turn back and, do something different. So with all the roundabouts that have been built, what are the reasons now and to build one? And how safe have they become?
I mean, I think if you look at, I'll say this, if you look at roundabouts in the area, a lot of them, the rear ends go up. The rear end crashes go up and some of the side swipes go up, but those are not the injury crashes. And so I do think I think you look at the Blue Ash roundabouts, I think you look at, the one, obviously the Moeller one down in Montgomery is pretty big. But I think, single lane roundabouts are more common than they used to be. I mean, Butler County's put in a ton of roundabouts over the years. I think that there are certain types of crashes that do go up. Those crashes are less severe and usually not injury crashes. All crashes are bad, but those crashes are better than a T-bone because, someone, tried to judge a gap and get out onto Kemper that they didn't think that they could get onto. So I think those roundabouts at those intersections tend to be smaller because it's, Kemper's a 2-lane road over there. I think you could do something with a single lane roundabout that would flow traffic very well and would allow that to work well. So.
Ms. Webster.
I hate those roundabouts. I've had almost 2 head-on crashes trying to drive on them. I don't think they're safer or anything. What do they do for you? You have.
I mean, there are statistics that show it does decrease the angle crashes, which are usually where you get injuries and fatalities. Those go down because you're turning right. And it does move traffic constantly, so it's not. You're not waiting on a side street typically. It does move traffic continuously. I mean, I agree. There are people that are still, not driving the correct way on roundabouts. The other day I drove through one and someone, made a left, and I don't know why they made a left, but they went the wrong way. So there are unfortunately people that do the wrong thing, but there are a lot of statistics that, those crashes, those serious and fatality crashes are less.
I think they're dangerous. I really think they're dangerous from my own experience, but I don't know.
Any other questions? Mr. Vanover?
Thank you, Mr. President. What did you find on 747 where the exit out of Strategic Way onto 747 is supposedly it's a right-hand turn only, but probably everybody in the room has seen somebody come out and do a U-turn across 6 lanes of traffic.
Yeah.
Is there anything
So on that section of 747, we actually came up with a couple different recommendations and to combat different things. And so there's obviously the discussion you talked about with the red light running at 747 in Kemper, or 747 in Crescentville, the people being in the incorrect lanes as they close in on down towards Progress Place and down to 275. I mean, there are things that you could look at trying to do on that section to try to make that right in, right out more robust. Obviously, there are businesses across the street, so other fuller, bigger, I'll use the term median things are difficult because there are businesses over there that need access. But there are things you could do to make that movement more difficult.
We even talked to some places about a traversable median, so it's like a little bumpy, so not great to go across, but is possible. Is one thing we've discussed. But that is specifically in the plan, that section right there.
Okay. Last call for questions. All right, again, thank you for coming in. I know we went through it pretty quickly for what it was. That's a lot of work that went into that. I know all the data analysis, and I appreciate your engineering brains, I guess is what I'm saying. So thank you for helping us develop the plan and all the work that went into it.
As Brian said, all that data, all of that's really good for any grant application, so.
All right. All right. All right, next we'll move on. Next on the agenda is communications. Are there any communications to council this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. No communications.
All right, next we have communications from the audience. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience that would like to address council for any reason. You simply need to come forward to the podium, state your name and address, and you can address council for up to 5 minutes. At this point, the floor is now open for communications from the audience.
Hello, I'm Julie Tudor, 669 Park Avenue. I just had a question for administration about the lights that are out in the parking lot. I noticed it coming in tonight. It is so dark out there and so very dangerous. I mean, we have a lot of women here. We have a couple children out there. So this is like, for a month, it's been dark out there. And now that it's getting darker sooner, it's really dark.
Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, the lights out there are on a switch with the chiller that's being replaced currently. Some of the timing that was in place for some prior meetings has been adjusted because breakers were turned because we had LED lighting improvements going on for several months here. They had to turn certain circuit breakers off to work on some of the exterior lights. Some of those didn't get turned back on, and or when they got turned back on, the lighting mechanism or the timer was no longer in sync. So it was coming on later or earlier and mistimed. But as soon as those things wrap up, we'll get all those on at the appropriate times.
But how soon do you think that's going to be? It's been like this for a month.
So the chiller itself, the new chiller was put in place this morning with a crane. I would anticipate all the necessary wiring and whatnot to be back in place in the next couple of days. So I would say before our next meeting, you should see lighting improvements in the parking lot.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you for that, Mr. Yule. All right, the floor is still open. If anyone else would like to address council. Second call. Third and final call. All right, at this point, I'm closing communications from the audience. We're going to move on to ordinances and resolutions. Mr. Jacobs, first up we have is ordinance number 43, 2025. This is a second reading. Mr. Jacobs.
Ordinance number 43, 2025, an ordinance declaring certain city property as surplus property and authorizing the sale, disposal, or transfer of surplus property. Whereas council has determined that certain property of the city is no longer needed by the city for municipal purposes or useful as such, absolutely or temporarily. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring, Section 1, that consistent with Article 8, Section C3 of the Charter of the City, and as permitted by Ohio Revised Code Section 721.15, the items listed on the attached Exhibit A, owned by the city, are hereby declared to be surplus property, no longer needed for municipal purposes or useful as such, absolutely or temporarily, and that such property may be sold by internet auction or otherwise, transferred or disposed of by the city. Section 2, that the city administrator is hereby authorized to dispose of said property in the manner specified herein. Section 3, the council hereby finds and determines that that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council, and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, that this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the reading of ordinance number 43, 2025. It can be acted on tonight. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? All right. Seeing none, Ms. Bowdy, if you poll council.
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 43, 2025 passes with 7 affirmative votes. All right, next we'll move on to ordinance number 44, 2025. This is a first reading. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 44, 2025, authorizing a preliminary ordinance with the State of Ohio Department of Transportation for bridge-size culvert improvements at State Route 747 and Interstate 275 within the city of Springdale. Whereas the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, has determined the need to pave inserts of bridge-sized culverts and perform other related repairs, including HAM 747-0195, HAM-126-1700, HAM-74-1681, and HAM-275-2448 in the city of Springdale, the project. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1. That it being in the public interest, the City of Springdale gives consent to and shall cooperate with the Director of Transportation to complete the project. Section 2, that the city shall enter into an LPA federal ODOT-led project agreement, if applicable, as well as any other agreement necessary to develop and construct the project. Section 3, that the State of Ohio shall assume and bear 100% of the costs of the improvements associated with the project. Section 4, that the city agrees to pay 100% of the costs of those features requested by the city which are determined by the State of Ohio and Federal Highway Administration to be unnecessary for the project. Section 5, that the city agrees to acquire and or make available to ODOT, in accordance with current state and federal regulations, all necessary right-of-way required for the project. The city also understands the right-of-way costs include eligible utility costs. Section 6, that the city agrees that all utility accommodations, relocations, and reimbursements will comply with the current provisions of 23 CFR 645 and the ODOT Utilities Manual. Section 7, that upon completion of the project, and unless otherwise agreed, the city shall, 1, provide adequate maintenance for the project in accordance with all applicable state and federal laws, including but not limited to Title 23 United States Code Section 116, 2, provide ample financial provisions as necessary for the maintenance of the project, 3, maintain the right-of-way, keeping it free of obstructions, and 4, hold said right-of-way inviolate for public highway purposes. Section 8, that the mayor and city administrator are hereby authorized to enter into contracts with the Director of Transportation, which are necessary to complete the project and to execute contracts with ODOT pre-qualified consultants for the preliminary engineering phase of the project. Section 9, that upon request of ODOT, the mayor and city administrator are hereby authorized to execute any appropriate documents to effect the assignment of all rights, title, and interests of the city of Springdale to ODOT arising from any agreement with its consultant in order to allow ODOT to direct additional or corrective work, recover damages due to errors or omissions, and to exercise all other contractual rights and remedies afforded by law or equity. Section 10, the council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council, and if its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 11, this ordinance shall take effect from and after the earliest time allowed by law.
Council, this was the first reading of ordinance number 44, 2025. Any questions or discussion this evening? All right, seeing none, we will have this on our next agenda. All right, next up we have ordinance number 45, 2025. This is another first reading. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 45, 2025, an ordinance amending Chapter 94 of the Springdale Code of Ordinances regulating taxation. Whereas the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio Council has previously adopted certain regulations contained within Chapter 94 of the Springdale Code of Ordinances, the code that govern taxation within the City of Springdale, and whereas Council seeks to revise Chapter 49 to align the code with revised provisions contained in the Ohio Revised Code. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, the Chapter 94 of the Springdale Code of Ordinances shall be amended in relevant part as indicated in the attached Exhibit A, which is incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, that this council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council, and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, that this ordinance shall be effective from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 45, 2025. Any questions or discussion this evening? All right, seeing none, we will see this again at our next meeting. And then lastly, we have a resolution R18, 2025, and I just want to verify, Mr. Braun, we can act on this tonight if we decide to. Thank you. All right, Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Resolution number R18, 2025, a resolution adopting the SS4A and Vision Zero plan, shaping the future of Springdale streets, safe streets for all action plan for the city of Springdale, Ohio. Whereas the United States Department of Transportation launched the Safe Streets for All, the SS4A program, to support local and regional initiatives to prevent roadway fatalities and serious injuries, and whereas the city of Springdale, the city, was awarded funding through the SS4A grant program in 2024 to develop a comprehensive safety action plan, and whereas the city engaged the professional services of Tech Engineering Incorporated for the preparation of the comprehensive safety action plan, and whereas Tech Engineering Incorporated, in coordination with the SS4A task force comprised of engineering professionals and city officials, has completed the development of the SS4A and Vision Zero plan, shaping the future of Springdale streets, the plan, a plan focused on the goal of zero traffic deaths and serious injuries, better known as the Vision Zero goal, and whereas the plan outlines specific strategies, projects, and policy recommendations to improve roadway safety for all users, including pedestrians, cyclists, motorists, and transit riders, and whereas adoption of the plan demonstrates the city's commitment to improving public safety and supports eligibility for future implementation funding through the SS4A program and other funding sources, and whereas the Council of the City of Springdale, the Council, finds that adoption of the plan as the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan is in the best interest of public health, safety, and welfare. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the Council of the City of Springdale does hereby adopt the SS4A and Vision Zero plan, shaping the future of Springdale streets in its entirety, a copy of which is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, that the city administrator is hereby directed to submit the SS4A and Vision Zero plan, shaping the future of Springdale streets, to the United States Department of Transportation in fulfillment of the state's Safe Streets for All grant requirements. Section 4, that the city administrator is hereby authorized to pursue grant funding opportunities and implement projects and recommendations identified in the SS4A and Vision Zero plan, shaping the future of Springdale streets. Section 4, the council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 5, that this resolution shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the reading of resolution R18, 2025, and it can be acted on tonight. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? All right. Seeing none. With that, Ms. Browder, will you poll council?
Mrs. Alva-Meiskop.
Aye.
Ms. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Vanover.
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster.
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye. Resolution R18, 2025 passes with 7 affirmative votes. All right, that's the end of ordinances and resolutions. Next, we'll move on to old business. We have 2 items on the agenda already listed for this evening. The first one was America 250, and I'm not sure if there's an update from administration on progress that's been made there, but this was left on here from our previous meeting. You may recall that we voted to join the America 250 group. We submitted an application that we mentioned last time. And in the last meeting, we said that we were going to talk about forming the required committee either tonight or in a coming meeting. That committee that's supposed to work on programming and getting things moving and working with the wider group is supposed to include 1 to 2 elected officials and should also include, or could include, members from the community that represent civic organizations. And we were, at least in the last meeting, trying to be mindful of the fact that we had an election in the city this week, and there's some changes in council, so we wanted to make sure we accounted for that. So knowing that background, we have the opportunity tonight to talk about committee appointments, or we can wait until that next group is seated and do it as a whole. So I didn't know what council wanted to do on that. We can leave it on the agenda and hold it, or we can start talking about ideas for that. Mr. Jacobs.
I would support waiting until the new council is seated for what it's worth from my seat. Thank you.
Ms. McFarland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree on waiting, but isn't there a time frame we had to follow?
There is. Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. The time frame was just within the first 30 days, we had to have start beginning these conversations about a planning committee and whatnot. We don't necessarily have to have a formed one set in stone and set that and send that back up to anyone. So they just want things to keep moving. So.
And I will share, there is interest in the community for it. I know that when I've spoke with some people in the community about the American 250 program, there was interest and excitement. I know at least one local artist who'd been doing work with the rec center reached out, talking about leading a project during one of those monthly assignments, painting a mural or doing some adjustments to some of our street art, and making those a community event where people could come and participate as a group and do a patriotic mural or something like that in an area in Springdale. So even if we don't have the committee formed tonight, just know that you don't have to wait until that committee's formed as individuals or elected officials to reach out and talk about people in the program. You've got all the information on the website about what the intent of it is. How Springdale makes it its own is really up to us. So you can have that and we can start planning those projects. So just know that that's available. All right. I don't see any more lights, so we'll move on to the next item, which is maximum residential occupancy limits. This was an update. We had spoken in our last meeting asking administration to reach out to the Ohio Municipal League talking about occupancy limits, and I think there might be an update on that. Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, the Ohio Municipal League, I want to reach out to them. As far as rentals are concerned, the only thing that they are really working towards are short-term rentals. Those are the only things that keeps resurfacing and where they're focusing a lot of attention. They don't have anything in the pipeline or have had any other inquiries about occupancy limitations for rental properties, kind of how we're as far as what we are experiencing. So the short answer is they don't have anything in the pipeline currently.
So that would then kick it back to council. We had talked about at least drafting a note or to send to our Ohio legislators and our federal representatives just to raise the awareness that this is an issue we're having. So that's something that's still on the table if that's something council wants to do. Ms. Sullivan-Weiscup.
I think that wouldn't hurt anything to get that going, just to let them know that it's something that's a concern, and let that be on their radar for them to get back to us.
Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before, say, we would draft this, would there be, could we go back to the Ohio Municipal League and see if there's any interest in any of the communities wanting to join in? And we sending this, resolution or whatever we do. Obviously, more numbers, the more it stresses that this is an impact and an important topic.
So that's certainly an option that we could do. There's different paths we could take. We could draft our suggested resolution and take that to other communities and see, or to Municipal League. Again, just like with the American 250, not having a committee does prevent any of us from talking to our peers in other communities. We can do that even before that. But really the question is, I guess maybe Mr. Vanover, what do you think would be more effective from your experience? Would it be drafting the resolution and then taking that to the league, or going to the league and asking if other people want to join first?
Well, probably doing the legwork first and draft it and present it to them. I can tell you that this is a hot topic in my world, and I have gotten just numerous complaints over the last 30 days that I've been out. So it's real and it's a concern with people. So yeah, we can draft it and send it to the Ohio Municipal League membership and see if they would be interested in either signing on or creating their own.
Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just yesterday, I had an hour-long conversation with a gentleman over in Heritage Hill about this same subject. We had a resident come with a similar complaint last meeting. We need to, or I am asking residents to come forward to identify some of these issues so we would know what we need to deal with. The gentleman I talked to pointed it in the direction and said there's 5 homes here 3 homes here. Just come forward so we can identify these problems. That's what I'd like to see, and we can work from there.
Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, the last and most current rental list that we have in Heritage Hill is 122 units, and that's what we know. And probably the gentleman you talked to is a gentleman that I talked to earlier, and he actually resides in Sharonville and was complimenting me on our activity over on our side, because obviously I walked through that neighborhood over there, and they're facing the same battle. I mean, Heritage Hill, whether it's Sharonville or Springdale, have always kind of been, I won't say a redhead stepchild, but a red herring, because the two, even though they're two separate municipalities, they are one common neighborhood. And so, yeah, I'm sure you know, there may be interest in Sharonville, but you can talk to anybody, any place. I talked to them for over the last 30 days, and that was the common thread, that what was going on. I mean, I've forwarded text messages and emails to Mr. Yule on concerns that are brought up. I know one of them down on Marwood had an open case. I mean, it's frustrating because in that case, the garage door was taken off, and there's a window air conditioner unit sticking out of the wall. Well, it didn't take a genius to figure out what's going on. So it's a huge problem. You can reach out to whoever you want to, but I don't think that dragging our feet to get any more feedback is going to, you know, benefit anybody.
And you're referring to feedback from residents.
Correct.
But we definitely want feedback from our representatives. Right. Great. All right, well, just as a reminder, just as our council rules require, if we're going to create a resolution, request a resolution as a group, it requires a motion to create. So at this point, the chair's looking for a motion to create a resolution that would be suitable to send to state and federal reps around the issues that we're having enforcing our occupancy limits. Is there support for that? You would just need to say so moved.
Mr. President, I would make a motion that this committee or this body as a whole would draft a resolution outlining our concerns and requesting guidance and assistance from the next levels up to deal with this maximum residential occupancy and well, whether it's rental or owner occupied, to take this forward.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion about that motion? All right, at this point, Ms. Battery, poll council on the resolution, or the motion to create a resolution that will track under that section of our rules of council.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mrs. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. So 7-0, we've agreed to move forward and create a resolution to that effect. And as the progress is made in that, I'll bring that forward to council. All right. Any other old business that anyone on council would like to bring forward? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on. New business. Is there any new business anyone on council or administration would like to bring forward? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to meetings and announcements. Ms. Sullivan Wisecup.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning Commission will meet in these chambers on Tuesday, November the 11th at 7 p.m.
Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few things to note on your calendar. Wawa's doing their grand opening. It's this Friday, November the 7th at 8 a.m. Veterans Day ceremony will be on November the 11th at 1 p.m. at a Veterans Memorial Site. Sam's Fuel Station will have a brief opening ceremony also on November the 11th, and that'll be at 8 o'clock. And lastly, December the 1st at 2:30, we're going to reseal the time capsule here in the municipal building. I think we'll have some fifth graders from Springdale Elementary joining us for that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Zoning Code Revision Committee is scheduled to meet Monday, the 10th at 2:30 p.m. in the conference room. And the BZA is scheduled to meet at 7 p.m. the 25th of this month at 7 p.m. in these chambers. That's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. McFarland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Board of Health is scheduled to meet in these chambers on Thursday, November 13th at 6:30.
Ms. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Civil Service Commission will meet on November 6th at 2 p.m.
All right, and the last pre-announcement, since we don't have it said, although I want to make sure it's on people's radar, is as we did just have an election, we will be having, as we typically do, our special meeting on December 1st to swear in the new council members and do that housekeeping, just like we've done after past elections. The exact time is still being worked out as we work with different schedules, so you will be hearing from administration or myself as we figure out the exact schedule and timeline. But it'll be, we believe at least right now, starting sometime no earlier than 5 and no later than 7. We're just working on schedules, all right? And we'll be able to firm that up at our next meeting. All right, next up we have communications from the audience again. This is your second opportunity. If anyone in the audience would like to address council for any reason, simply come forward to the podium, state your name and address, and you can address council for up to 5 minutes. At this point, the floor is now open. Second call. Third and final call. At this point, I'm closing communications from the audience. And we'll move on to recap of legislative items and legislation still in development, in whichever order makes the most sense to Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, as you review your legislative summary, item 1, an ordinance declaring certain city property as surplus property and authorizing the sale, disposal, or transfer of surplus property was addressed by ordinance 43-2025, receiving 7 affirmative votes. Item 2, a resolution adopting a Safe Streets for All safety action plan for the city of Springdale, Ohio, was addressed by resolution R-18-2025, also receiving 7 affirmative votes. Item 3, an ordinance amending Chapter 94 of the Springdale Code of Ordinances regulating taxation, was addressed by ordinance 45-2025, receiving a first reading that'll be back in front of council at our next meeting. Item 4, authorizing a preliminary ordinance with the State of Ohio Department of Transportation for bridge-size culvert improvements at State Route 747 and Interstate 275 within the city of Springdale, was addressed by ordinance 44-2025, receiving a first reading and will return at our next meeting. In development, we have item 5, a resolution adopting a cybersecurity program for the city of Springdale, Ohio, pursuant to section 9.64 of the Ohio Revised Code. That will be before council on the 19th at our next meeting. And lastly, council did vote 7-0 to create a resolution communicating upwards concerns about maximum occupancy in rental properties. That's all I have, unless there's anything else from administration.
Anything? No? I think we're good. All right. All that's left before us then is item 15.
Move to adjourn.
And we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.